We're going to explore the community's reaction to some of this heroin overdose stuff. It's horrifying, it really is. Nice to have you in to my state of mind. I am Dan Yorke, and we start a brand new week, and I thank you for starting it with me. The Olympics are over, right, guys? Okay, so everything's back to normal. We'll have an Olympic note. We have a young lady today who is going to talk to us about some of the community reaction to some of the drug challenges out there. She called my radio program last week to talk about things that are going on, and when I, in exasperated fashion, said, what's going on with these awful numbers of heroin overdoses with fentanyl-laced heroin out there on the street, whatever. You remember some of the rundowns last week where we talked about this, and I just didn't have any answers. I don't know who really does at this point, but we'll get into that this evening. First, let's check the rundown and cover some of the things that are on the mind. This is just a gut-wrenching story that continues. I was in court today. I'll tell you what happened. This is not funny, but it could end up being very, very, very interesting. This makes me laugh and is right in the heart of Republican competitive politics. This I downloaded and then X'd it out after someone said to me, "What are you, stupid? You don't need to download that." And then this is all Jess's humor. Yeah, Jess, my producer. Okay. And you never know, rocks could throw something in the middle of that too. All right, all hands are on deck. Unfortunately, I can't laugh through this. Tragic family dispute continues. This is the story of a young man, 17 years of age, Central High School football player, was destined for college and a good life, and lost his life on February 4th to a bullet that reportedly was intended for somebody else. There was a court hearing today on the custody of his remains. It's a conversation that we've had here. We had his legal guardian aunt and cousin on the broadcast last week. Here's a summary. Susan Campbell was in court with me today, and then I'll kind of fill it out for you.
It's been nearly 3 weeks since George Holland Jr. was gunned down at his girlfriend's home in Providence, but the boy's body is still in limbo.
I'm tired. I just want this over with.
Leah Seaton is George's aunt. She became his legal guardian after the boy's mother was convicted of killing his father. Seaton wants to bury George with his father.
I just want him laid to rest with his dad.
But George's mother, Shayna Rufo, wants his body to be cremated. Gina Bly is Shayna's sister. She spoke on Shayna's behalf outside of court.
Why can't she have her say? That is her child, not theirs. I don't care what the state said because of the circumstances. That is her child. She needs to have the last say how her son is put to rest.
On the day of George's funeral, Seaton says Key Funeral Home told her they would not be able to bury George's body. 2 weeks ago, Seaton was granted a temporary restraining order to prevent the funeral home from cremating the boy's remains.
Yeah, I mean, can you get a worse story? Now, remember that the mother, the natural mother seen in the courtroom, is incarcerated for the murder of the young boy's 17-year-old George Holland Jr.'s dad. Senior was killed by mom. She's doing time in the ACI, and she wants the remains to be cremated. It is the aunt that is the deceased dad's sister, who has been the legal guardian, and it's just gut-wrenching. The funeral home showed up for the court today, and follow this. The legal guardian aunt, Ms. Seaton, who you saw there, is petitioning the court and suing the funeral home. She doesn't feel bad about the funeral home, but the funeral home is the contractual other part of the two-party deal to bury young George. The funeral home kind of panicked when the incarcerated mother visited George in his casket and said, "I want him cremated." They, on their own, decided that state law prevented them from doing what the legal guardian wanted, and they just punted and wanted the court to figure this thing out. Today, the funeral home sent a representative, an employee, a director, but not an attorney. And Judge Meadows said, can't have this hearing because a corporation has to be represented by a lawyer. Okay? So that's really what's going on here. That's why there's another week delay until next week, which is a bad break for the families because they need a resolve to this thing. And his remains need to rest in peace in one way, shape, or form. The good news about it is it gives the judge a chance to really read some of the arguments, and the lawyer for the legal guardian has really done some good research and I think has some very salient arguments about why the legal guardian and the bulk of the family should win, and there's no winners here, and have George buried. The lawyer will be here tomorrow on the broadcast to talk all about that. God bless them all. All right, let us move on. This is just kind of interesting. And the Sunday Journal had this headline. I thought this was kind of fascinating. Rhode Island famous on the witness list for the Doyle trial. This is Dan Doyle, who ran the Sports Institute there in, southern Rhode Island at URI. I think we've got pictures of it. It's been out of the news for a while. Well, there's Dan, and there's some of the court documents and indictments against him. But the funny thing is about this whole thing, he reportedly was in contact with as many as 90 key players in this state about all the work that he was doing. He's charged with, mishandling buco amounts of money. And unless this case settles, there could be a witness list a mile long of who's that'll be called. Stay tuned. The case continues on Friday. I'm not suggesting that anybody in the who's list knew what was going on, but let's put it this way. I'm sure they're hoping that it was just Dan Doyle that went off the reservation on his own. Stay tuned. It's going to be interesting. The other thing we got here, news-wise today, politically around here, is the battle for Johnny. Now, I'm talking about John Hazenwhite Jr. I consider him a good friend. He is the guy that, he runs Taco in Cranston and has kept that company here and employs more than 500 people. He's the apple of these two guys' eyes. We have pictures of the announced candidates for governor. On the right is Ken Block. He made his announcement at TACO, John Hazenwhite's place. Did I say Al? Let me make sure I said that right. Alan Fung on the right. Did I say Alan Fung? I hope I did. It's a Monday haze I got over me. Alan Fung is on the right. He's already announced at TACO. On the left is Ken Block, and tomorrow he announces at TACO. Now, Ken has been on the program. He's an announced candidate, but this is his first real soiree, his big kind of political party, all at the home of this guy, Johnny White. Now, don't you love the finger? What's on your mind, Rhode Island? Look out, RI. And the billboards. John puts up the billboards and he advocates for issues like pensions and other public policy things. There's no way, if you've ever met John, don't worry. That big finger pointing thing that he does there, it's all part of the, the pizzazz of his message. He's a very smart guy, but he's the most accommodating, friendly, listening type of guy you'll ever want to meet. And he's one of those guys who hardly thinks there's a benefit in saying no to people when they ask for something. And so Alan Fung, the mayor of Cranston, wanted to celebrate his gubernatorial announcement at the successful TACO in Cranston, and John said sure, but he didn't endorse him. Ken Block now, trying to one-up, is coming to Cranston to TACO to make his kind of biggest platform announcement, and John says sure. So the two of them are kind of vying for the endorsement of John Hazenwhite Jr. without really asking for it, and John doesn't really want to give it, but he's always available if you want TACO to rent. If I announce tomorrow, I do it at TACO too. He's got a really nice spot. I'll have some video from that tomorrow, but it's a fascinating political conversation. And we'll see how this whole thing turns out. John doesn't usually endorse, but you never know. All right, what else do we have as we finish up? So did you see this $19 billion Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook purchase of WhatsApp? WhatsApp! WhatsApp! Just trying to be, WhatsApp! So I've been really curious about this thing. So today I downloaded WhatsApp. And what this does is it's a way for mostly international people to text freely, because I guess the data charges for a single text can be as much as 25 cents for people who are going crazy with their phones. So this is a bypass and makes the texting process free. Now, I have an unlimited data plan, or an unlimited text plan, I guess, so it was explained to me by guys in the radio office that I'm a functional idiot wanting to have, what's up? But all I wanted to know is, hey, you know, a $19 billion purchase, there are 55 employees at this WhatsApp application. There's no profit at this place, and it's worth $19 billion. There are major conglomerates in this country that make lots of things that are important to the way our quality of life operates that are not even worth close to $19 billion. I am completely perplexed. Whoever is out there who can explain this whole dynamic of this digital economy to me, please let me know on your state of mind. Contact us. Jess will get in touch with you because I'm completely perplexed by this. What's up? I X'd it out. I don't need the app, I'm told. And finally, speaking of Jess, she thought this was funny. I said, okay, well, let's put it on. Here's the opening ceremony. Remember when they couldn't get the 6th ring to light or the 5th? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5th ring wouldn't form? Well, the Russians poked some fun at themselves in the closing ceremonies by doing the little ring, and then poof, it joins the others. Jess and I have both agreed that while it might be the Olympic Committee and the Russians who put that thing together that have a sense of humor, we're not so sure Vladimir does. They did win a couple of key races there at the end with the cross-country skiing, but it was all about the hockey team, and they pew the whole event. You know what? That ought to be it. No more NHL players in the Olympics. Enough. When we come back, a young lady who is working in the community on this also not so funny issue of heroin overdoses and drugs in general, and we'll find out. Stay with us.
Reynolds had 2 sons that died. Paul was 22 when he overdosed on heroin in 2004. Teddy was 30 when he died in 2010, also from an overdose. Their dad found them both.
Went upstairs and opened the bathroom door, and there he was, slumped over. And again, Friday morning, the dad got home from work again and found his second son.
There have been 7 overdoses since Friday in Rhode Island, and every number has a face.
This is bad. That is an excerpt of a story on Eyewitness News that came from the Marion Hospital seminar that they had last week, where some 160 people showed up to talk about this real societal problem that we have, and the huge number jump. Look at these headlines that came from last week. Second spike in overdose deaths, 38 in 6 weeks, and then a second one which knocked me back. 7 more die of overdoses in Rhode Island. And the other day on the radio, I just kind of said, what is this? What is going on? So on my radio program, noon to 3 weekdays on WPRO, people call the show, as you know, and Rebecca was one of those who called in and said, hey, you got to know about what we're doing. So I invited you in, and I find out that she's a Jersey girl, and we used to be sort of neighbors, but she's a lot younger than me. You're a Brown graduate. Welcome, by the way.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're a Brown graduate?
I am.
And you're an English major?
I am.
So that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
It comes in handy with grant writing.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Cool. So tell us why you called the show, then we'll talk about what your organization is doing.
So I called the show because this is a real crisis, and I think that right now a lot of people are scared, and rightfully so, and they don't necessarily know what resources are available to them and how they can be a part of the solution to the problem. And we work with a bunch of people who are actively working to address this problem and wanted to offer some support and resources for people.
Okay. Before we just talk about the organizational work, do you have any gut check as to what's going on here with this whole heroin explosion? What was horrifying to me was 2 things. One, that we've had a doubling of deaths on a prorated basis since the beginning of the year till now, but that we actually, if you split the number of 45 deaths over 7 weeks, the normal overdose number is 20 people from the beginning of the year to this time in February, or last week in February. I feel guilty that I didn't even know.
Yep, it's been a crisis even before this year. It has been an epidemic. This year we're seeing numbers that are beyond terrifying. And like you said, it's double the rate of this time of year.
What do you know
normally.
about it? I mean, what do you know about what's going on out there that's creating the crisis?
So I kind of see this as, it's a wave. And in many ways, this was very predictable. We could have expected this. What we had in the last decade and a half was an overprescribing of prescription painkillers. So we flooded American bodies with these very addictive, very potent drugs. And then in recent years, we've realized how addictive they've become. And we're seeing a lot of people go into treatment for this. So what we've done is we started cutting back on prescribing practices, and rightfully so, educating prescribers, maybe you shouldn't give 30 days worth of Vicodin for a tooth extraction.
Right.
I mean,
I have some. Or had some.
Most Americans do.
It's like here's a bottle, and I know the dentist, good friend of mine, did a great job yanking my oral surgeon teeth out of my mouth, but I took one Vicodin and said, oh,
I don't need the rest.
I don't want it. It
Exactly.
just didn't like the way it felt.
Exactly. So we had this overprescribing. We got a bunch of people addicted to this stuff, started seeing waves of overdoses. And if you look at the trends since 1999 of prescribing these drugs, and you line up the overdose deaths, it follows the same curve. So the more we prescribed, the more overdoses we had.
Okay, so and that leads me to talk about, when we come back, we'll talk about what Rebecca is doing on the ground, but also this dynamic that she's talking about ought to remind you that this is not your stereotypical drug addict on the corner, not that they're not important to our society. These are everyday, regular working people that had a backache or a toothache, and they're in trouble. Stay with us.
This is not something that we know the cause of. There are probably many causes. We know that we have a tough economy. We know we have relatively easy access to what's illicit.
So instead, health officials have issued a warning to family and friends of anyone with addiction problems to get involved and urge them to seek treatment.
You can't wait for them to fix it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, and that's Dr. Michael Fine, who runs the health department here in the state. Rebecca runs an organization that is, how would I define it?
We're working to promote policies and programs around drug policy that better serve families and young people.
We were talking during the break, and I made the transition to say, hey, look, you know what? This is not that, in God's eyes, everyone is an equal, and that we can't respect, the person who looks like a drug addict on the street. But this heroin overdose situation is hitting people in all walks of life who have been prescribed these pills, who run out of them and who can't afford them on the black market, and heroin has been a cheaper solution, correct?
Exactly.
All right.
It's also much more available on the black market.
Yeah, and we'll talk about tomorrow on our rundown the story that hit earlier today, where a pharmacy tech employed by CVS is alleged to have ripped off thousands of these pills. It could have some impact on exactly what kind of numbers we have out there. I'm not sure that that's the case. So what's your organization doing? Tell us how you can help people.
So we just launched a website called stopoverdoseri.org that people can go to and learn more about the work we're doing in the state. We have several goals. One is to educate people about the problem, to let them know the numbers and let them know resources available to help. So we sit as part of the Overdose Prevention and Rescue Coalition at the Department of Health, and we have links and resources that people can click on and learn more.
Okay.
We're also trying to increase the availability of naloxone. So we work with an organization in Rhode Island called PONY, Preventing Overdose and Naloxone Introduction.
Naloxone is the drug that helps
reverse an opioid overdose.
An opioid overdose. Okay.
Exactly. So we're working to do trainings to at-risk individuals and communities to educate them about the availability of naloxone and give them naloxone through this program. And also educate them about Good Samaritan laws that Rhode Island has, which is phenomenal. We're one of few states to have it, but it's not any good if people don't know about it. And the other thing is to let people know about support and treatment services available to them. And we're working on reducing stigma as well, so we'll have a testimonial campaign that we're looking to start soon.
Okay, so here's what I want to do. I'm going to have Rebecca back for a longer conversation at a later date to talk about this program in depth, because I think it's just too important. But and we have the information. We've put that up, or how the website and all that kind of stuff. Cool. But in 30 seconds, tell me how you got involved in this as a young Brown student.
I got involved in this because I saw that our drug policies weren't working, especially for young people. Often young people are used as, you know, the image of you know, drug abuse and stuff, and we never really have a say in it and how we could be doing more to address this problem. So I did a lot of harm reduction work on campus. That was really my passion, and I wanted to continue doing it, so I stuck around in Rhode Island and saw a problem that needed to be fixed. Just
kind of hit you?
It did, and I mean, this is very personal to me. I've had friends who have overdosed, and I've had family members who have been victims of this, so it's very important to me on a personal level.
Well, good work. We'll have you back, okay?
Great, thank you
Because
so
we got to talk more about this.
Thank you.
We got to pay attention to this because it's in all of our communities. Your State of Mind when we come back. Stay with us. Alrighty, Your State of Mind. This is how you get in touch with the broadcast. 228-1886. You leave a voicemail, stateofmind@myritv.com. And of course, you can tweet and Facebook post as these listeners have. Let me see what we got on the Facebook post, or what's the feedback today on Your State of Mind. Eugene says, you mean you have to be a resident of the state to run for statewide office? What's next? Being required to be a legal resident to vote? I like Eugene's sense of humor. He's referring to Michelle Kwan. Remember, you see that little ditty there? The Coca-Cola endorsement page for the Olympics this time around. Hometown LA, lives in Washington, D.C. If you're married to the guy who's running for governor, you probably should say lives in Rhode Island. We'll see you tomorrow night on Your State of Mind. We will have the lawyer for the family in the midst of that remains custody battle. So we'll see you at 7:30, and we'll see you on the radio at noon on WPRO. You have a great evening.